Meeting to order. This is a Cascade Charter Township Planning Commission, Monday, March 4th, 7 o'clock. We have two commissioners that are not able to attend today. Ryan Bruno, which is excused, and Scott Reese, which is excused. And the other six members of the Planning Commission are in attendance. I'd like to ask everybody to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, now, actually come sit up here. Maddie's not going to be.
Can I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Support.
Support.
No.
Are you ready?
Joe beat you to it. Member Nordyke made the motion to approve. Member Engel supported it. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Vote is 6-0. Article 4, is there any conflict of interest, especially for anything that is on the agenda for tonight?
So I know the CEO of Skytron, and I know Mr. Webb as well, who's out here to kind of represent them as well, potentially. I don't have any financial benefit from Skytron. I know the family, and I know people that work.
Just a personal basis?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I don't see that as a problem. Does anybody see that as a concern? Okay, well, thanks for being upfront about that. Appreciate it. Okay, Article 5, approve the minutes of the February 26, 2024 meeting. And I have a motion.
So moved.
Support. Moved by member Chris Nordyke and seconded by member Joe Engel. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you all. I'd like to now acknowledge visitors and those wishing to speak on anything other than an agenda item. Anybody on?
Chairman Moxley, Ryan Bruno is online and would like to make comment.
Okay, member Bruno.
Member Moxley, can you raise your hand and acknowledge you can hear me?
Yep. Speak up.
Well, I appreciate you letting me dial in, and I just have one point of clarification before I take my 5 minutes. You said it can't be on items. Well, there are no public hearings, so may I speak on items?
As a planning commissioner, yes.
Okay. So I had the pleasure this past week of being a planning commissioner member and got the packet, but then I was an outsider and watched last week's meeting, and then had the pleasure of being inside the ropes again and getting this week's packet, and I'm outside the ropes again attending the meeting. And I just wanted to kind of share a couple of thoughts. One is a bit of a soapbox, the other is more material. I just encourage that as commissioners, we hear, listen, and then act. I helped craft the bylaws that were approved last week, so thank you for everyone approving those. But a lot of the chaos I saw last week, I was surprised by. I'm kind of, I guess, embarrassed that we're wrapped so tightly around process that I would hope process would be rote and that we'd spend the material of the time going over a substantive debate. There is a site plan review process on the website of our township. There's a PUD zoning procedure manual on our website as part of the zoning procedures manual, and I was surprised to see all of the chaos around that. I can send those links if people find those useful, but If those are sufficient, even if they're wrong, I'm surprised we don't follow them until they're superseded by something more useful like we did with the bylaws. To that end, I'm moving to points here to the listening part. There is a site plan approval process. And if we follow that, which I don't know why we wouldn't, we have to date, I'm questioning why Article 8 does not have a public hearing. And if it wasn't noticed, should that be rescheduled?
We will
And I don't know
address that. We will address that when we get to Article 8.
Okay. And then the last one is, you know, I said the kind of the acronym Hear, Listen, Act. The last one is the ordinance amendments. Article 7 was clearly a big topic at the last meeting. And I don't see any packet changes since that meeting. And therefore I wonder, did we achieve anything by tabling? Chair Emeritus Nordyke asked that we have the same material as we had the last PUD amendment, the watermark cigar bar. We clearly had exactly what would go before the Board of Trustees and then be enacted. And I think it's a reasonable request. And if we've changed that, you know, I think that change should be documented. And if that change isn't documented, I think we stay the course until we have the changes. And the reason I think his request was of utility was because the wording as is, I think, has holes in it. And it basically says that you must have a 3,600 square foot daycare center if you have a daycare center. It doesn't say maximum. So my question is, if it was 3,450, would they be non-conforming? It also doesn't specify what building. Zoning Administrator Madison pointed out that in previous years, a different building in that same PUD asked for the same request. So my question is, as the zoning ordinance is written, would we have issue if buildings B and C came back with the same, or came back noticing us that they're going to have child daycare centers? As written, it appears that we could end up having 3 of those because it doesn't specify what building. It says it is allowed as long as it's 3,600 square feet. So issues like that, I think, are why it's important that we use precision words and we follow processes. And with that, I will get off my soapbox and go back outside the ropes and hope that we can start operating more efficiently.
Well, I appreciate your comments, especially about specificity on Article 7. I appreciate that. Anybody else online? Maddie? Okay. Anybody else and the visitors want to make a comment about an item that is not on the agenda? Okay. Let's move on then. Article 7, case number 243811. Andrea?
Okay,
Any
this one.
comments? No comments, no changes? Okay. Do we have a representative in the audience? Would you like to come to the podium? Give us your name, your address.
Yeah, actually, hold on a minute. I'm sorry. Could we recognize Mr. Engel for just a second?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you, sir. I have a question for you, Andrea, and it relates slightly to what Member Bruno said. And this is just an attempt to maybe avoid a future issue with this. The specific language for this does say 3,600 square feet devoted to a child daycare. Because this is an ordinance, if, for example, they wanted to come back and use more space in the building, would it make more sense to provide them with some flexibility here should they want to increase the size of their usage? And I'm not sure how we might word that, but it's something along the lines of unused square footage or incorporate additional space for a child daycare center. The 3,600 happens to line up with what I assume they're going to use. Maybe they want it bigger, maybe they want it smaller. Can we add some flexibility in there without a lot of work?
Absolutely. I actually did want to speak to that because this was something that when Madison and I were working through this, she said this should be a daycare center. And when I went to notice it, I actually had said, let's change the uses that are allowed in this PUD just to allow for daycare centers. Because I don't, and this is my opinion, I think that we have over-regulated to the spot and the square footage PUDs to such an extent that it's caused so much of this confusion and, visiting planning commission over and over and over again for very minor changes. So we could actually change that. And I hope that Leslie's online and she can attest to this as well. You could actually change that to just generally blanket allow for PUD or for childcare centers in this PUD.
If Leslie's comfortable with that, I, as a planning commissioner, would be comfortable with that.
Yes, I think that would be appropriate. You would just add that as a permitted use in this particular district, either by special use permit or by right.
Thank you.
Good. Any other questions from the members?
Not yet.
Okay. Representative for the project, please step forward, give us your name and your address.
Mark Bowen, home address 7141 Dorset Drive.
I used to live on Dorset.
You did?
Yes.
No kidding.
Long time ago.
Great neighborhood.
Yeah. You want to give us any update or any changes that have taken place in the past week?
Yeah, it'd be really easy. We have no changes, no updates.
Okay.
Same request as last week. Should I go through that again or?
Well, why don't we open it up to the planning commissioners to ask you questions?
Was there ever a traffic study done on the increased traffic that could be caused with a third daycare within 2 miles? Did you get, I'm sure you guys probably didn't do that. Did we look into that at all as a township? I mean, especially, for those of you who travel Cascade Road at 7:30 in the morning, it's, first of all, it's a drag strip. And then secondly, there's quite a lot of traffic, and having people pull in and out. I work out at the gym there every morning, so I know exactly what the traffic patterns are there.
At the
Right.
snap?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so pulling in and out of there with people dropping kids off, picking kids up, school buses, I mean, that's going to make a bad spot worse. So, I mean, I know there's a second entrance a little further down, but that's not much better, right?
Mhm.
I'm pro business. I'm just like
Yeah.
a third daycare center, like.
So I don't believe you were here last week.
No.
Correct.
Oh, he
Yeah.
wasn't.
So maybe I'll go through. So I've owned Grand Rapids Gymnastics since 2011.
Okay.
I have 3 daughters. My middle one is the one who, got me involved in this whole thing. So when I purchased that entity, we had, it was losing money. It was about to fold. I think there were 200 families and about 6 employees. Today, I'm proud to say that we have, I think it was 865 families. And more importantly, we have about 47 employees that we employ there. So
Good for you. Congratulations.
we've turned that business around. It's very profitable. More importantly, for me, I'm a little bit of a different business owner. I'm all about employing people and giving back to the community. And I think, a certain percentage of that PUD is required to be for youth oriented, I believe. And so we serve that role within that PUD. Just the same, yes, we've grown it successfully. The conundrum is we currently have about 200 to 300 families on a wait list. So we're at capacity, and I am looking for another location. Probably won't be within the township of Cascade, just from a demographic standpoint. If we were to get that other location going, that'll probably reprieve the Cascade location to a certain degree. Caledonia is one area we're looking at.
Would it make sense to, instead of doing a daycare, to use that 3,600 square feet to expand the?
We can't. Well, originally, so just how it happened.
Yeah.
Mark and I are friends and neighbors. He was a gymnast when he was younger, and we both share. Obviously, we're fans of the sport. So his business there, and I'm speaking for you, so if I misspeak, just let me know. So he's a typical office space. Pre-pandemic, they had 30, 35 employees in the space. Post-pandemic, they've averaged a couple.
Okay.
So he's also an officer of the company that leases the space of which he's an owner of.
Okay.
So simply put, he came to us and said, hey, I hear you're bursting at the seams. Would it assist you to move into, our space? Now, originally, the idea was, yeah, we could take our littles because it's office space. It doesn't
Sure.
have 25-foot clear span, right?
The little
So-
ones don't need that.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. So,
Sorry, my daughter did our athletics, but just for a little bit,
no,
but
that's fine. That's perfectly fine.
you guys were too
There's more than
competitive.
enough business for everybody. So, so originally it was like, yeah, let's do that. Let's move the littles over there. We have team, we have recreational, we have preschool, we have ninja, and then we have a program called Bumblebees, which is kind of like glorified babysitting. We're not required to be licensed by the state because we do 3 hours or less, and the parents are present.
Okay.
So let's move the littles over there. Maybe that'll create some space so we can get some of these families off of the wait list. And again, it's hard when you are rolling your shopping cart down Forest Hills Food and mothers come up to you and they're begging you to get their kids, off the waiting list into your facility because they want to be there, right? So that's where we started. But then my senior director of business operations says, well, how about we go back down the road of full-blown daycare? It's a crisis. There's a massive need for it. The two other locations you're speaking of, Apple Tree and Goddard, they are both on 3+ year wait lists. You can research it if you'd like. There's articles written about it. I had them here last week. I didn't bring them with me today. It's a crisis for the young folks that are having kids. They can't find daycare. So from that standpoint, immediately, just in all honesty, I was like, there's no way in the world we're going to do that. There's too much competition, but it's a need for the community. So that's why we started looking at it. We have been down the path before and getting licensed with the state. It was determined we weren't required to have a license because our programs were less than half a day. So we didn't do it. It's a familiar road. We're very confident we'll be able to get licensed. We have more than enough time. His current tenant, I believe, is in there till November. So we're ahead of schedule, I guess or hopefully ahead of schedule on this thing. From a traffic standpoint, I understand where you're coming from. I'm a safety freak. I'm a former corporate pilot. Talking with Andrew about that earlier today. We put cones out, we say slow. I mean, the biggest conundrum we have, honestly, is with the lifeguards from Watermarks screaming down that parking lot when they're coming to work.
See, my concern is 28th or Cascade Road.
So what I would
Pulling in and out right there. I mean,
right.
got
What
it.
I would say to that, though, I don't see us being able to accommodate a ton of kids because there's only so many kids you can have per square foot.
Okay.
It's not like we're putting in a daycare center.
How many kids can you have per square foot?
I knew I should have carrier. I think it's
Yeah,
no, it's not even
approximate.
that.
I'm not just-
I'm gonna say the most we can have there's maybe, and I might be 75 kids.
Okay. Just
Yeah.
curious. I mean, I'm not gonna hold your feet to the fire if it's 60 or 90. It's
Yeah.
just give me a ballpark, 75 kids.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
not like we're gonna have 300 kids. We just don't have the space.
Sure.
So I think the whole thought process is that space is going to become available based on what he needs to do as an officer, the tenant of that facility. And he's a little different in that, I'd be careful. That part of your portfolio isn't a big part of your portfolio. You're more interested in that space becoming something that can be used to benefit the community. Or at least that's what he's conveyed to me. And I'm
Sure.
speaking for him, and I'm all about that as well. And so last week I said, it's not like I'm a guy coming in here saying I want to open a pizza joint, never having made a pizza before. I've owned that facility since 2011 or that business there. We're a tenant in the neighboring building there.
Yep.
I
see it every morning.
I would argue we've done a good job in serving the community because we continue to grow and we get very, very good reviews. So we're all about moving in, taking that space over next door and creating a business that once again will serve the community. Daycare is something that is just massively needed. So
How many jobs do you think this daycare is going to
we anticipate
create?
between 6 and 8 employees.
Okay.
Yep. That's also set by the state as well. You have to have so many employees per kid.
Okay.
Per child.
Any other questions for Mr. Bowen? Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Can we have a Motion to approve.
Do we want to approve it, Chairman Moxley, or would we want to perhaps discuss
I
amending the
think we should close
language?
public.
Yeah, so
We have an open public.
Oh, that
yeah.
wasn't public? Okay.
That wasn't public.
Okay.
No,
I don't think, do we have a requirement? I don't believe we do to have a public hearing. on
no,
this
there
matter.
is not. Okay, so I'll open it for our
I'm happy to
discussion.
make a motion to, if y'all trust me to do that, but for me, I think removing, and I would appreciate staff's comment on this, but removing the 3,600 square foot requirement, I just would say it allows a daycare center in there. If it all becomes daycare, we can deal with that when it happens, but
As a permitted use.
yeah,
Keeps it simple.
I think so. Thank you means you agree?
So you want to make a motion, Chris? You want me
I'd be happy to make a motion.
Does anybody have any other discussion on this? Is everybody? Okay.
Can you get over the traffic?
Yeah, you know, I mean, well, I
Here it
mean,
comes.
I was not digging this, right?
Yeah.
And after listening to you speak, I mean, I'm a little more comfortable than I was. I still have a traffic concern. I know they've tried to put additional daycares in a couple of additional spots on Cascade Road. I think this is at least a decent spot because it's tucked back in. Cascade Road just
Super
terrified.
7:30 and 9 o'clock in the morning.
Super
is
busy at
crazy.
8:39 when you're rolling out of the gym.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's busy at night
We gotta
too,
get
you
to
know,
the
and
bank,
people
right?
are picking kids up. So I'm nervous about, accidents, but yeah. Hey, now everybody can start at 5 a.m.
Yeah.
We're not all go-getters, you know?
Okay, you want to make a motion?
Yeah, the matter, for the case number 24-3811, I make a motion to approve with the staff recommendations and with a modification to the language by removing the square footage requirement and just leaving daycare as a acceptable use.
That is under subparagraph 7, in paragraph B in the proposed ordinance.
Yes, that.
I will support the motion.
Okay, motion by member Nordike, supported by member Engel, basically taking out the 3,600 square foot requirement. 3,600, the statement of 3,600 square feet for the child daycare center. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Congratulations. Thank you for coming.
Thanks, folks.
Sorry for the delay.
Okay, I'd like to now go to Article 8, case number 23-3805, Skytron.
Sorry, just grabbing my pen.
Was Andrea going to present to us?
Nope, it's me.
Oh, that's right. Okay,
So I should briefly note before I kind of dig into this, that this application came in before Andrea started, so that's why there's a little bit of weirdness back and forth here, as well as a different site plan review layout, which you probably haven't seen before because I haven't done a site plan review yet with you guys, but I'll kind of give some like very brief background on kind of how this is laid out. So typically in general, my rule of thumb is that I don't take anything forward to the planning commission until it's a complete application. So that's why you see the number 3 under the subject matters, because this is the third review that I did for this particular project, because it was determined after reviews number 1 and number 2 that there was still some information that needed to be sussed out prior to us arriving at a positive finding for the planning commission to make an informed decision. So the subject site is located at 5085 Corporate Exchange Boulevard, currently located within PUD number 50, I believe, which is ordinance number 3 of 2017. The existing building is a 68,985 approximately square foot light manufacturing facility in which the applicant manufactures medical products currently within the enclosed building on site. The proposed application is for a 51,014 square foot addition to the existing building. intended for a warehousing use. Now, I should note that it is important that the PUD ordinance does not explicitly note that warehousing is a permitted use within this particular PUD. However, it does allow for accessory uses that are customary and incidental to the primary use on site, which is the light manufacturing. So I should note that while it's not explicitly permitted, we found that it is similar in nature to that of the existing character of the plan unit development, the existing character of the transitional industrial district to the north, and similar in nature to the, and I should say, clearly incidental to the current light manufacturing use. However, it is a sizable addition. The building footprint, if approved, will be expanded by approximately 74% as a result of this particular addition. I should also note that per case number 98-2086, there was a previously approved site plan, which is noted on page 1 of your memorandum in your packet. So the primary purpose of this site plan before you this evening is to, number 1, amend the previously approved site plan, which was never actually completed back in 1998, and number 2, to address this particular application as it relates to the increase of intensity on the subject site, as well as the additional use on the subject site. So as previously mentioned, this proposed use is for warehousing in conjunction with the light manufacturing that already occurs on site. As noted through your discussion through this application, that if you all determine that the warehousing use is customary and incidental to the light manufacturing use, that we recommend that as part of potentially a condition of approval. It should also be noted that the Meadowbrook PUD board is required part of this review process for this particular Meadowbrook PUD. However, staff reached out to the Meadowbrook PUD board and they basically said, yeah, we told the township a year ago that we kind of dissolved. So he said, kind of off the cuff, we don't have an issue with this, but just to note that we don't necessarily have anybody who's in charge of these. So that might warrant an amendment to this particular PUD ordinance in the future to remove that hoop, so to speak, through our site plan review. It should also be noted too that the applicant is requesting to include a portion of the northern subject site and combine it with the subject site at 5085 Corporate Exchange Boulevard. The site plan notes where it's formally a railroad right-of-way on the northern portion of the site that has then that the applicant is interested in purchasing from that northern property to add to their current property to accommodate for this additional use. So should the Planning Commission find it to be appropriate to approve or conditionally approve the site plan tonight, we note that that's going to be an important condition of approval, that boundary adjustment occurs and that it's compliant with ordinance standards and registered with Kent County. Existing and surrounding conditions, as previously noted, this is an industrial or light industrial business. Surrounding businesses or surrounding land uses are all industrial in nature. With regard to site plan review, so jumping to the schedule of regulations, we did find that everything per the section XA of the PUD ordinance, the proposed structure or the proposed addition does comply with that particular section. However, the site plan sheet C101 notes an 80% maximum lot coverage requirement, and I have not been able to find where that 80% comes from, so I would defer to the applicant to further explain that justification of that 80%. With regard to off-street parking and loading, that table on the middle of page 3 kind of notes parking calculations per required per the ordinance. All in all, with adding together the requirements for both the light manufacturing use and the warehousing uses is a requirement of approximately 138 spaces. The applicant is proposing 145 spaces, 7 of which are ADA compliant. This is compliant with both PUD and ordinance standards. However, I should note that the additional the additional parking does require additional landscaping, which I'll get into in a minute. It should also be noted too that section 19043A of the zoning ordinance states a maximum of one driveway per parcel. Section 19043B states an additional driveway may be approved by the planning commission for lots with street frontage greater than 300 feet. So because the applicant is proposing a new driveway that doesn't already exist on the subject site, this would be the northwestern portion of the site on Corporate Exchange Boulevard, I believe is the correct road, that the planning commission would then have to find a positive finding that you would support and approve that additional driveway. With regard to surface materials per our review, it does appear that the proposed materials is compliant with the PUD ordinance. However, stormwater drainage, that kind of thing, is all subject to review and approval by the township engineer as well as the Kent County Drain Commission, which I will also get into in a minute.
Good.
With regard to lighting, the applicant did submit a photometric plan. We found that the photometric plan is compliant with section 434 and 1919 of the zoning ordinance. It did not note, or the photometric plan did not note any light trespass onto any adjacent properties. And lights shall be fully shielded and pointed downward as were specified on the plan. So we find that that is compliant with ordinance standards. With regard to signage, no new signage is proposed. Any signage, we note for the record that any signage that is proposed as a result of this particular building addition shall be subject to separate review and approval by the township. Regarding landscaping, I'm referencing chapter 20 of the zoning ordinance, as well as sections XG4 and XC3 of the PUD ordinance. The landscaping plans include a total of 22 new trees and the preservation of 34 trees located on site. It should be noted that there are a sizable number of existing mature growth trees located to the northern portion of the site. The applicant is proposing to remove that existing berm, but those existing mature growth trees are planned to be preserved. So I would also like the record to note that township staff, as well as to further the township's goals of natural preservation, that we support and encourage the preservation of all existing mature growth trees to the highest extent possible. Per section XG4 of the PUD ordinance, this applicant shall submit details detailing the removal of any trees that are 5 inches or more in caliber to the planning director for approval. To my knowledge, that has not been submitted yet, but it's possible that could be a condition upon approval, provided that the planning commission sees that to be appropriate. Per section XC3, uses of berms to screen parking and loading areas. So referencing the proposed site plan for the building addition, the north side of the building includes a new loading and unloading dock. That's intended to accommodate 2 trucks to be parked there at one singular time. We should note that we did have quite a bit of conversation with the applicant on appropriate screening for the loading and unloading dock. For how the site plan is organized, or for how the site plan is drawn at this moment, and with what this letter references, we find that the proposed loading and unloading area is likely appropriate and properly screened from adjacent land uses and from the road. We do note that it's not perfectly screened, it's not completely obstructed. However, given other precedents in the area, that there are very open loading and unloading docks within this particular PUD that currently exist, as well as the applicant putting forward good faith to adjust their site to provide additional screening from what was previously proposed, that should the planning commission find that that loading and unloading area is appropriately screened, we support, our staff supports the way that it is presented as in front of you. With regard to site circulation, I'm on page 5 of the memo if anyone is following along with me as I talk here. So as I previously mentioned, there are 3 points of ingress and egress located on this site. Executive Parkway has 1 current ingress and egress. Corporate Grove has one current, and then there's another one that is proposed to the north side of that. Now, the north side, the northernmost ingress and egress located on Corporate Grove Drive is intended for truck traffic only.
And the
Cor-
truck traffic would go out at that exit,
Correct.
headed west.
Yep.
Okay.
As for the southern driveway in Corporate Grove Drive, that's intended for passenger vehicular traffic for employees, customers, whoever. And then Executive Parkway is intended for both. So if you see where it kind of forks there, on the right-hand side there is where trucks are intended to go, and then they will circulate north and then west out of the building. And then passenger vehicles are intended to go toward that smaller lot there on the south side of the building. It should be noted that the new driveway and the current driveway modification are both subject to review and approval by the Kent County Road Commission. The applicant has been in conversation with the Road Commission, but to my knowledge has not received the actual proof of approval or permit approval at this time. However, the Road Commission did send an email kind of noting theoretical approval, but nothing official at this point, to my knowledge.
Can I make one comment about the driveway?
Mhm.
At the northeast corner, the building facade is right on the driveway.
Northeast corner.
And you see where it cuts on a 45-degree angle?
Mhm.
The building is right there. You bring a semi around that corner a little too tight, guess what? You're either
Mhm.
gonna destroy the truck.
Yeah, so the
Yeah,
site plan
here
package
and
should
there.
include truck
Go
turning.
wide here, what do you think, and then pull in, yeah, that corner. Point.
I better have some pretty strong building guards on those corners.
That's a good point.
Or it's gonna-
First one, I think.
It's gonna get ripped off.
Yeah. So there is a sheet on your site plan package that does include or should include truck turning radius and diagrams. So hopefully that will kind of help explain a little bit the intent behind that, but I would defer to the applicant to explain a little bit more. on-
Usually I think it's best to separate the drives from the buildings by
Yeah.
10 feet or so, but.
Yeah. And this is also to say too, that the fire department, of course, will have a weigh in on this as well. The loading dock is on the northern portion of the.
Come up around this
proposed
way
addition.
and they're gonna back.
So the proposed loading
It's
dock was
extended
also
out.
a large discussion that we did have with the applicant because it was previously
That should
approached,
go up and around.
proposed to where they would pull out, where
Stay away
semis
from
would pull out
corners.
directly onto the street. And we
Yeah.
said that's got to get pulled back because we can't have semis pulling directly out onto the street. So at least it's, within the enclosed site. However, there are some tight corners there. I surely agree with that. I should also note too that the applicant or the property owner, business owner does own that property to the east.
Oh.
Oh, I should also note too that the applicant has stated that delivery and shipment of products and merchandise will be done approximately using 3 trucks occurring about 5 times a week. So we're looking at roughly an increase of about 15 semi trucks per week as a result of this new building addition. Given the current nature of the area.
Once the building's up and running, there's an addition of 15 trucks per week.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Given the existing nature and industrial nature, we don't find that 15 trucks per week would be a make or break for the PUD or the general area. But of course, that's up to the planning commission to decide if you find that to be appropriate. Yeah.
Danielle, this new building is an accessory building that's related to the existing building. Is everything that goes in the new building going to be product that's produced in the new building, or are you bringing in other materials from the outside to
Mhm.
distribute from this new warehouse?
So I should note that it's a building addition. So it's not an entirely new building, but it will be attached to the existing.
I understand that, but.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify.
Sure, I may have misspoke. So are things being light manufactured in the original building and then moved to the new building? Or are we bringing in outside completed product and then shipping it out of the new building?
Or Sheila, why don't we ask the applicant or the representative?
Both, okay.
Both.
So it's accessory and related to this building only in the sense that part of the product that ends up in the new building is being manufactured there.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay.
Mhm. I should note as well, with regard to truck traffic route, as previously mentioned, that the applicant did provide truck turning diagram movements. They are compliant with ordinance standards and PUD ordinance standards as they exist today. However, if the planning commission would like to have discussion with the applicant about that or any concern with regard to site circulation, then I would recommend having that discussion with them. A pedestrian walkway approximately 4 feet in width is proposed also to connect the existing building to the new addition adjacent to the remaining parking area. And the applicant has also included a bike rack on the facility. The applicant does not request outside storage as part of this.
Who rides a bike to work anymore?
It's an ordinance requirement. Have a bike rack.
Is it really?
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
It's an electric bike.
A
Yeah.
lot of people do, Al.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you ought to get out.
He goes to the gym.
Those aren't people I want to hang out with.
Goes to the gym at 5 minutes. That's right.
Yeah, or, maybe there's folks who live in the area that like to, get some exercise. With regard, I'm on page 6 at the top with regard to outside storage, utilities and infrastructure, as well as trash removal and disposal. We did not find anything of note in particular to bring up or bring forward at this point. Existing trash removal and disposal is intended to carry forward through this particular proposal. To the engineer, or let me back up. The proposed addition shall, of course, include appropriate utilities and infrastructure. We did not find that this particular proposal would have a major impact on existing utilities and infrastructure, given that it's already hooked up to many of them. Outside storage is not part of this proposal. Lastly, with regard to additional agency reviews, as I previously mentioned, the fire department will be submitting a review prior to any improvements taking place on site. Cascade Township engineer noted that there is an existing county drain within the particular project area. This quote here is from the Drain Commission. So I just would like to note that all drainage and stormwater patterns shall be subject to review and approval by the township engineer as well as the Kent County Drain Commission. I already mentioned the Road Commission and how they are also involved in this project and process. And of course, they will have to review and approve the proposed driveways. So that's all to say, back to our recommendation. So given the plans as presented dated 2/28/24, staff does note that the applicant has achieved many of the zoning ordinance and PUD ordinance requirements, and we are requesting conditional approval at this time, provided that the Planning Commission finds a positive finding for the 4 conditions that are listed in front of you or on the top of page 7. Which I can read it aloud if needed for the record, but any questions? Yeah.
Rob?
I apologize if you covered this and I just missed it or misunderstood it. Couple of questions I had. With the parking requirement, are additional parking spaces being created or do they already have enough to cover the need? I wasn't sure about that based on my interpretation of the pictures, I guess.
It does look like, I'm trying to remember the existing conditions. Okay, it does look like they're truncating some of the parking that's existing on the west side of the site. And it looks like majority of the existing parking, the remainder of the existing parking is planned to remain. So most of the site circulation changes that will occur on site are due for truck traffic rather than vehicle traffic.
That's what I thought too. So basically they already have enough parking.
Correct, yeah.
Okay. And then the points brought up earlier, I thought were pretty good, especially the one about the at the northeast corner with the semi-traffic there, making that turn or those turns. But here on page 6, where it says additional agency reviews, I thought this is, the following reviews have been conducted. Does it mean will be conducted? I know that it says, for example, like where the Cascade Township engineer just then, I guess, quotes the Kent County Drain Office
Mm-hmm,
paragraph there.
mm-hmm.
So our engineer and the Kent County Drain Office will look into this before it moves forward?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. There are several permits that are required prior to any improvements taking place on site.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I would like to request that you just go through and state the recommendation on page 7. And if any of the commissioners have a question for you
Mhm.
to ask those. Go ahead, Danielle.
Sure. Based on the previously discussed analysis conducted for the proposed building addition located at 5085 Corporate Exchange Boulevard, Cascade Township staff recommends approval of the proposed site plans dated February 28th, 2024 for the 51,014 square foot addition to the existing principal building with the following conditions. Number 1 of which, that the planning commission determines the proposed warehousing use is both incidental and accessory to the permitted principal use per the PUD ordinance requirements. Number 2, that the planning commission approves the new driveway in Corporate Grove Drive, given that only 1 driveway is currently permitted, 2 currently exist, 1 is being proposed. The planning commission finds that the proposed screening of the loading and unloading area is adequate. And 4, that the applicant obtains all required reviews and approvals prior to any improvements taking place on site, including but not limited to the township engineer, Kent County Road Commission, Kent County Drain Commission, Cascade Township Assessing Department, Cascade Township Fire Department.
Good, thank you very much.
Sure.
Any other questions for Danielle? Member Engel.
There is currently a berm that runs east-west across the north side of the property,
Mhm,
and this proposes to remove that completely.
mhm,
And is that to facilitate the building of the road?
mhm.
Couldn't build the road if we didn't remove the berm, I assume.
That is correct.
And the applicant wants to acquire part of the right-of-way from the railroad to the north, further to facilitate building that road.
Yes, that is correct.
Do they own the property to the north of the railroad?
No,
No setback issues here with the road.
not that I've come across.
Um, Do you know, and I know you kind of deferred to the applicant here, what is the 80% lot coverage issue here? Help me understand that if you can.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not certain I'll be too much of a help in that department, only because I've been scouring both your zoning ordinance and the PUD ordinance, and lot coverage for this particular type of development is silent in both. So that's where I had requested that the applicant provide additional information as to where that 80% came from. Because to date, I have not been able to find anywhere written in black and white that there's an 80% lot coverage requirement. Or any, for that matter.
Is that, and this is a silly question, but is 80% minimum, 80% maximum?
Max is usually how it's,
Okay, so if it was
presented.
81%, we can't do it. If it's 80%, we're compliant,
correct.
wherever
The-
that comes from.
Yep, so the applicant is proposing approximately 74% coverage and noted that the requirement is a maximum of 80% coverage. But as I said, I'm not certain where that 80% came from, so perhaps.
And we
they
did
can-
request from the applicant to provide us where that 80% came from,
Yes,
and they haven't done that yet.
to my knowledge, no, but it's possible
you
that
request that?
something submitted after the fact.
When did we request that?
I think I noted it on site plan number probably 1 and 2. I don't have the dates in front of me. But this particular, so site plans were submitted on February 28th and this review went out as well on the same day. So there was a site plan that was also done that was dated February 21st. And I know that that was noted on that review as well. And as I mentioned, it's possible that it came in after the fact and I just hadn't seen it because the review went out.
The applicant does have the answer to that
Oh, they
question.
do? Okay,
But they're at 74%, so it's really
Yeah.
a
correct.
moot question.
I think it's from the Drain Commission, by the way.
Is it? So it's a-
The 80%, yeah,
It's a runoff issue.
yes.
That makes sense then. Thank you for clarifying. I was like, I don't know where this is coming from and it feels unusual to have no lot coverage maximums, but
And who calculated the 74%?
the applicant on the cover page or first page of the site plan, it's noted on there.
Have we verified that?
I have, but I did not put the calculation on there. If you give me a minute, I probably could do it at the desk when I have the
Is
internet
that,
pulled up.
is that building footprint, or is that also the rest of the impervious surface provided by the surrounding asphalt?
It should be footprint. The way that the ordinance defines it is per footprint, not per all impervious.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Danielle? Thank you very much for a very thorough review.
Sure.
I'd like to now ask the owner's representative to come forward.
Calculate that. Just to make sure, thanks.
Please give us your name.
I am Julie Townsend. I'm with Driesing and Associates. And our client is Venning Clausen, whose client is Skytron.
Okay. Are you a civil engineer?
Yes, I am a civil engineer.
Good. I'm an architect.
Okay, very good. Do you want me to address more of the drainage and the C factor of the coverage
Sure.
first? Yes, we did get, this was a lot of back and forth in the last week or two here, so it might have been a miss. We had conversations with the Kent County Drain Commission, and they wanted the coverage of the 0.8 and, or the maximum.
80%.
Yeah, 80%. What we had calculated was that 0.74%. And what I will say on that too, that was on a previous site plan. So we do need to update that. That was before the property was purchased on the north side. But now with that additional property, we've got a little bit more impervious, but I'm sorry, we have a little bit more pervious, but we have more impervious. So when we run through our calcs again, we expect the number to actually go down to be lower than the
Percentage
points.
of coverage
Yes.
will go down a little.
And I do not have those numbers with me yet. We were going to do that after this meeting.
Okay.
So we had talked to the Kent County Drain Commission and they were supportive of they reviewed our calcs and our report and everything. But that was for before we revised the site plan, to be fair.
Okay, great. Planning commissioners have questions?
Well, I guess what are your responses to the chair's comments about
The
turning
corners.
radius of the corners on the
The
trucks?
corners. We did run the turning templates, the vehicle turning on that. It does work. What we are proposing that's not on here yet is to put bollards in there so that they can't hit the corner of the building or rub on anything, just to keep them off a little bit. We usually do that in pretty much anything where the trucks are right on the building like that.
To protect the building?
Yeah, protect the building. Yes.
Okay.
It's just not that far of detail on the site plans yet.
They destroy the truck too bad, right?
I guess I would protect the building over the truck. So.
Okay,
Would there be any thought about fire trucks making that turn? I mean, I don't know why they wouldn't be able to,
I don't think it'd be a problem.
but
I think the fire trucks would probably have a shorter wheelbase than
Yeah, I
the trucks coming in and out of there.
Well, they have to sign off on this anyway.
What's that?
They have to sign off on this anyway with the recommendation, so we'd cover
They'll
that.
review it.
If I may speak to that, the fire department did weigh in, initially said that they require a 20-foot minimum drive aisle width. So if that, and the proposed drive aisle width exceeds that 20-foot.
Okay,
Okay,
good.
good.
Thank you.
And maybe, okay.
Yes, member Nordic?
Is this a preliminary site plan review?
Yes.
State that. So we will have this coming back to us as a final. So like, is it incumbent on us to give the applicant?
You're shaking your head.
Yeah, so it's
No,
not.
this is a site plan review as required by the ordinance. It's not a preliminary site plan. It has all the requirements of a site plan review.
Do we typically do a public hearing for those?
No, it is not required. You may typically do a public hearing, but it's not required.
Okay.
And actually, a side note on that, we were very thorough about this process and we were afraid that with the lot line adjustment, that we would actually need to do a PUD amendment. And we actually noticed and worked with the applicant to notice this for a PUD amendment. But after review between Danielle and I and the city attorney, we realized that wasn't required. So there was actually a public hearing sent out for this item, but we ended up pulling that off the agenda because it just wasn't required per our ordinance or per the language in the PUD
So
ordinance.
it was noticed.
Yes.
And Mr. Chair, as we didn't allow public comment on agenda items, if anybody is here that wants to comment on it, I would recommend offering them that opportunity, just because we said that they couldn't. I don't know that anybody is, by the way. I just, in respect for due process, like we said they can't. So, so the impervious, if I may,
Yes.
the impervious, do we know that it will be less than 90% with the building and impervious services?
Well, less than 80%, yes.
Right. When it says 90%, that it can be up to 90% with
Okay.
the impervious. So
Okay.
no concerns there.
I don't have any concerns on that with acquiring that railroad grade area. We have made the building footprint a little bit bigger, but we've acquired way more land. So that 0.74 or 74% should go down when we do redo the calcs. I don't have any concern that there'll be a problem with that at all.
Thank you.
Good. Other questions?
This is
Member Engel.
for either Danielle or Andrea. Somebody in response to an earlier question said that the warehouse will be used for materials that are not manufactured in the adjacent building. I don't know what the percentage is, but do we as a township run into an approval issue with that? If hypothetically somebody were putting this up and just basically using this to ship goods in as a distribution center?
So our ordinance doesn't actually give any explanation of what percentage of a building or use is considered ancillary. So it's something that our ordinance doesn't speak to. So looking at their operation, we considered that and decided that ancillary use is appropriate in this situation. Our ordinance just doesn't speak to it. So we
So
would have a
it's-
hard time.
And it doesn't prohibit it?
No.
So whether
Correct.
it's 1% from the outside or 99% from the outside,
It's
doesn't
something
matter.
that I think that when we look at the zoning ordinance amendments, we should clarify and define our percentage to consider ancillary.
If I may also, I think this particular subject or question is kind of open up to interpretation a bit. Because the current use is light manufacturing, which then also requires materials from, elsewhere
sure.
that have to be delivered on site. That was sort of the thought process that was also utilized to find a finding of support that the warehousing use, while it is intense and it does have a substantial effect and a substantial difference to what's currently happening on site. But by using that kind of thought process that it is customary and incidental to the goods that are coming in and out for the light manufacturing purposes, that's kind of where the line of thinking went in finding that we would have been supportive of this accessory use. I should also note really quickly while I have the floor, I guess. So the ordinance lot coverage requirements do not include impervious surfaces, just structures, anything that connects those structures, such as a breezeway or something that's enclosed. So having said that, the building or structure lot coverage is roughly around 42% of the entire site.
So can you or a representative of Skytron, if somebody like that is here, talk to what they do, is what they're gonna use the building for?
Do you want to finish with her and then? Or just hop up there, you okay?
Do we have any more questions for the lady? Julie, is it?
Yep, Julie Townsend, yep.
Any more questions for Julie?
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very much.
Thank you.
Skytron representative, come on up and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Kurt Webb. I'm the Vice President of Operations for Skytron.
State your address, please.
Home address or work?
Home address.
Home address.
Also a citizen, so
Yeah.
yeah, 6394 Cascade Road.
Okay,
All
good.
right.
What do you
What can I do for you?
manufacture?
So we do some light manufacturing of medical products. We also do bring products from overseas into this warehousing environment and sell out of this location to hospitals all over the country.
Great. So what are you gonna do with the new building space? I mean,
Well, so first of all, we are renting a facility about 2 miles away from this location where we have about 25,000 square feet of material. I see a lot of that reducing before we move into this location, but the idea is growth, is us to manufacture, to have additional light assembly and some additional warehousing and, hopefully add jobs in the area, and that's the plan.
what kind of light assembly? I mean, like define.
Booms, building a assembly of booms,
Okay.
mostly.
Like the light booms in a.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Sorry.
Yes,
Just
Rob.
a general question, about the parking again. So I'm not sure, if I'm reading this correctly, light manufacturing requires, 2 to 3 times more parking than warehousing does, right? According to the table. And this new building would be a warehouse, according to the site plan. But what happens, maybe 20 years down the road, let's say, if they decide they're gonna move to a different location, sell this building to someone else that
it
wants
becomes
to
all
do
manufacturing.
light manufacturing. Do we have some sort of way to keep the warehouse? Because there's no room to then meet what would be the new parking requirement. There's no space left to build that many more parking spaces.
Yeah, maxed out.
Maybe that's a
Danielle?
question for you guys. so.
Yeah, if I, do you want to take that? Okay. If I may, so typically when you have a new use or change of use that occurs on site, whether if it's a change in hands of ownership, if you have a new additional use or change of use that's proposed, then it has to come back for a new approval. Granted, I suppose there could be a situation where the new purchaser is not acting in good faith and then just starts running a business. However, if it is a change of use, then that would likely trigger other approvals to take place from like the building department. And therefore the building department would flag it and say, wait a minute, this is completely different than what already exists. And then at that point, the township could say, yes, you have to come back for site plan.
I guess that's great. I hope that's true. Great answer. I guess for me, like, I feel like there are people that it's a blurry line between light manufacturing and where the warehousing actually begins in some places. I'm not saying that's like that for you guys, but sometimes people just start manufacturing in the warehouse. Like, we wouldn't really know, right?
No, I mean, I suppose theoretically you run that risk with any site plan you approve,
Mhm.
is that somebody, because I mean, granted, you have your building inspection that would occur before somebody would get a C of O. So everything would have to match with the site plan, both interior and exterior, before a C of O would be issued. So I suppose if something crazy were to happen on the inside, that it would be caught at that point, because then they'd be operating without a C of O, and that's a whole other thing. So that's all to say that I hear that concern, and I'm just not certain if there's a way that you can mitigate that, I suppose, other than you could, if the commission finds that an approval or conditional approval is appropriate at this time, perhaps you could build that into some sort of condition that this building remain, 100% warehousing and no other use. And should another use be proposed, you have to come back to the township.
Good answer.
Just an idea.
I guess for me, like,
Just riffing.
like future proofing this site, like, I feel like the safest way to do that would be to hit the minimum requirement for light manufacturing parking, even though it's a warehouse. I don't know how much that would make that and the current plan impossible, but if that were to happen, then it wouldn't be any issue ever, right? Because there would already be enough parking no matter what they did with warehouse later on.
I hear you. So you're suggesting to reduce the number of parking to meet the minimum required? Because right now they're suggesting more than what is required.
Nope, I would be suggesting to I'm not gonna do the math right now, but I would be suggesting to hit the requirement as if the warehouse was light manufacturing instead of a
Oh.
warehouse. That
We-
way, if later it turned into light manufacturing, it wouldn't be a parking problem because they would already have met that need.
I
So
understand.
whatever that would be, like it says, proposed number of spaces 145. So you would be doing the 1.5 spots per 1,000 square feet for the whole thing and ignoring the 0.67.
We can't really hold them to a use that they're not applying for. That's
Okay, that's
really
fair.
not fair to
That's
the
fair.
applicant.
It's a
All
good
right,
point.
well, thank you.
Good point.
That's a good point.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Rob. Any other questions for staff? Thank you, Danielle. Great job.
Yeah.
Okay, any further discussion amongst the planning commissioners?
Well, did you want to open it up to any public comment as per Chris's suggestion, or?
I don't know that anybody's even here, but just to say that we did it.
If the chair would like.
It's up to you.
Okay, I'll open it up to public comment. Anything online? Patty? None. Okay, thank you. So can I have a motion to approve by one of the planning commissioners?
I
Member
will,
Engel.
in case number 233805, I would make a motion that the planning commission approve the site plan review as proposed in our packet materials, contingent on the applicant complying with the recommendations found at page 7 of the letter from Danielle Bouchard, AICP. Those conditions being, number one, the planning commission determines that the proposed warehousing use is incidental and accessory to the principal permitted use and upholds the intent of the PUD ordinance. The planning commission approves the new driveway on Corporate Grove Drive. Number three, the planning commission finds that the proposed screening of the loading, unloading area is adequate as represented. Number four, the applicant obtains all required reviews and approvals prior to any improvements taking place on site, including approval from the township engineer, approval from the Kent County Road Commission, approval from the Kent County Drain Commission, approval from the Cascade Township Assessing Department for the boundary adjustment to the north, approval from the Cascade Township Fire Department.
That's it?
That's it.
Second.
Okay, moved by member Engel, supported by Alan. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Member, motion passes 6-0. Congratulations. Okay, and thanks to Danielle for a very thorough review of that site plan. Okay, I'd like to now cover Article 9, acknowledge visitors and those wishing to speak. Do we have anybody online? No. Okay, let's move on. Planning Commission training schedule for 2024. Andrea?
Sure, yep, I just included this in the packet, just to make sure that it was public. A lot of you have responded to the dates, so I've been working with the Michigan Association of Planning on setting up that date. I am gonna actually touch base with Chairman Moxley. If you haven't responded to dates that you're available, please do so. And I don't know if I made this clear. So you are now members of the Michigan Association of Planning. You should be receiving a packet to your home addresses, kind of introducing you to MAP, sending you some of their quarterly newsletters that go out. And then from then on, we'll have a discount on all of the training going forward. So Commissioner Bruno is now signed up for the ZBA training. Got some interest from other planning commissioners for items. And we'll be just working between me and Chairman Moxley to get you guys signed up for those. I don't know that it's necessary to kind of run through those dates and establish one now, unless you would like to. We're actually doing okay on time.
I don't think we need to go through it again right now.
Okay. So just so you know, keep your eye out. If you don't receive anything, please reach out to Chairman Moxley or myself. We'll make sure you guys get signed up. And we'll be setting up that on-site training in the near future.
Thank you for your follow-up on that, Andrea.
Yeah, I do appreciate the fact the township is encouraging us to
Yeah.
attend these training sessions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's good to finally learn what we're talking about here. It's good.
Speak for yourself, Chair.
That hasn't stopped us.
No. Okay, Article 11, any other business? I just wanted to mention one thing that we do have a workshop with the trustees on next Wednesday. I believe it's 6 o'clock to talk about farmland preservation. Okay, and Scott is out of the Lower Peninsula right now, but he'll be back for that. I'll be there. Remember, Rangel, you'll be there?
I will.
Okay, starts at 6 o'clock and it'll be in the Wisner Center. I don't know exactly which room yet or how they set that up, but I'll talk to Jade about that. Okay, have you heard anything further? Member Nordhook?
Yeah, we'll clarify that. It could be over at the township hall.
Okay,
So
We'll work through that.
time and location change
Yeah,
on the fly.
Just don't worry about it.
Typical trustee backdoor deals stuff.
if I may interject my personal opinion, I'd like to see us sit around at tables
with beer.
equally and
I
confer
don't-
that way as a workshop rather than having the trustees up here type of thing, you know, so. And talking to Scott, who was the chair of that, I'm just the recording secretary. He's going to encourage people to ask questions of us after they review the material, rather than some formal fancy presentation. So it should go pretty quick. Okay, anything else for any other business, Rob?
Two random questions, I guess, that one, not to belabor the point about the parking, but I do think maybe we ought to look into, you know, making it light manufacturing / warehousing as a parking requirement going forward. I know what I was mentioning earlier made it like it was their issue, which it wasn't. But like if we going forward just made it so that warehousing had to meet the light manufacturing requirement and it wasn't a separate lower bar to hit, because a lot of light manufacturing occurs in a warehouse essentially. I mean, I feel like it's anyway, I just think maybe we ought to look into that or have someone look into that. You're giving me a confused look. Am I wrong?
No?
Okay. And then another thing that I have asked about before, but I'm still bothered by, is where Cascade Road, you know, at one point, if you look at old maps, Cascade Road, Whitneyville was Cascade Road. The part that goes toward Lowell was called 44th Street. You know, at some
I
point they
didn't know
changed
that.
it, and Cascade
Really?
Road goes toward Lowell and Whitneyville. I mean, at any point, when you're heading south, you're veering off of Cascade Road. You're not doing a hard turn. You're still going 45, 50 miles per hour. When you hit this tight S curve there, I just wish someone would
It's
look
bad.
into that.
I mean, in my car, which is,
My car holds it.
my car holds it too, but it's like, whoa, that was kind of fun. Yeah, if
Wakes you right up.
yeah,
It's not fun.
I'm just saying in our cars it is, but in, yeah, I agree. I've driven that.
Where
It's,
do I bring this request.
That's gotta be Kent County Road Commission.
It's the road
But
commission.
you know what, go to Grace. See if she can get you in touch with somebody in the road commission and, you know, if you can get a bunch of other people in the area. I mean, it is, if you guys haven't driven it, take it, it's even at a little bit of speed.
It's fun.
It's just, it's got that dip. That's the problem, is it turns, it dips, and then there's another little jog left. And
There's
it's
a lot going on.
a lot going on there. I agree. And I didn't think it was bad until you said something and I drove it and I'm like, yeah, that's not good. They did a crappy job there.
Every time I go on that, I like it less.
But they did a crappy job repaving Cascade Road too.
I will say that the actual intersection between Cascade Road and Whitneyville, when you're going north on Whitneyville, is much better than it used to be.
Pulling out.
Because if you pull out onto, it's a 90-degree intersection now.
Yeah, that
Which is
part,
much
that
better.
part of it, I don't have the issue with. It's just the heading south where it could have been an easier fork in the road. Any way that they would have done it differently would have been better.
I hate to say this, but the reality, the reality is there's probably gonna have to be a couple of accidents before the Kent County Road Commission will do anything. But if I were you, I would, you know, it doesn't hurt to ask, it doesn't hurt to be a thorn in their side, but
So I'll actually reach out and work with the township manager and get a hold of the,
drive it. If you haven't driven it
yeah,
yet,
oh yeah.
yeah.
This sounds very exciting. I can't wait to
Yeah,
go
you're gonna be,
experience
yeah,
this.
you're gonna be like, holy crap. Yeah,
You
It's like a
said-
head-on collision waiting to happen.
it's a teenage kid losing control and in a spot that, yeah, there's no good spot.
Okay, well, thanks for listening to me about that again.
That's the first time you brought it up.
It's not the first time.
And related to that, feel free to meet with Grace. I think she meets the first Thursday of each month here at Wisner Center. She's on usually, was it 6 to 7 or 7:30, something like that.
Okay.
Come on in and talk to her. I gave her a zoning map because I attended a meeting and she was trying to describe a site location. She had no map. So I gave her my board and said, here, use this. And she's, hopefully she's using it. So the other thing I'd like to mention is thanks to Danielle for
Yeah, that looks good.
the master plan booklet. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Andrea and Maddie did the work on that.
Thank you, Andrea.
And Maddie, thank you.
Maddie.
And Maddie, not Madison, Maddie, thank you. Appreciate it. This is great. If we have any comments, should we send those comments to Danielle or Andrea?
Well, since our bylaws say that we should go through the chair and the planning director, let's go through the planning director.
Okay, gotcha.
Did we revise the bylaws on that?
Oh, yeah, we did.
Yeah, we made good headway. You weren't here. Too
That's
bad.
why you made good headway.
Yep. Okay, any other business? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Moved.
Support. Moved by member Engel, supported by member Nordike. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Passes 6-0.